Welcome to Mr. Holloway's Foundational Java Skills series. In this video, we're going to talk about compound Boolean expressions. But before we get started, please go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And class is now in session. In the previous video, we talked about conditional statements, and we're going to still do conditional statements here, but we're going to add a couple of conditions. And so with compound Boolean expressions, we're going to talk about the AND operator, the OR operator, and the NOT operator. So let's get started. So imagine this. Imagine you have a school that is going to throw a dance, and they have two policies. They have an AND policy and an OR policy. So the AND policy says that you have to have student ID and $5 to get into the dance. That's the AND policy, and both of those have to be true. If you have both of those, you can get into the dance. The OR policy says that you have to have $5 or student ID and you can get in. Let's see what that looks like in code. So I'm going to go ahead and type out a Boolean, and I'm going to say has money. We'll just call it money. And I'm going to set this to true. And I'm going to do a new Boolean, and I'm going to say this is has ID, and I'm going to set this to true as well. All right, so these are just two simple Booleans, and then I'm going to write my conditional statement. But before I do that, I'm going to do my skeleton. And if this is your first time here, I generally do these. I make the skeleton first. You don't have to, but because this is a beginning foundational series, I want to really make sure that everybody understands the delineation between the markers here. So these opening and closing brackets here, I just want to do this, but you don't have to do this. You can actually just leave this here. Not a big deal. All right, so I am going to do a compound Boolean expression, and here let me just set this first. So I'm going to say system.out.println. I'm going to say true. And then I'm going to do an else statement. So I'm going to say else. So the else statement is going to cover whether if the statement is not true. Okay, so I'm just going to put this here, and I'm going to set this to false. Okay, so let's do the compound Boolean expression. So what I want to use is the AND policy. So in order to get into the dance, you have to have money. So has money. And we're not going to write it like that. We're going to use the AND operator, which is the ampersand here, and I'm going to say has ID. Okay, so this basically says if has money is equal to true. Actually, let's do it just the very verbose way. So I'm just going to say is equal to true, and I'm going to make this is equal to true. So notice that I am adding using the comparison operator. This equal sign is the assignment operator. All right, so this is just a very verbose way of writing this, but let's write this out now. For a compound expression, and because we're using the AND operator, both of these statements have to be true. So let's run it, and this should print true because we have a situation where this is true and this is true. So ID money true. All right, and we get true. Now I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of this because we don't need to write that like that. This is probably this is a more concise way of writing with this compound Boolean expression, or any expression to in this case. All right, so we have has money, which is true. It's represented by true, and this is true. Okay, so let's make this false. So what could we do here to make this print out false? Well, because we're using AND, both of these statements have to be true. So if I were to set this to false, so now they have money, but they don't have the ID. So they're not going to be able to go to the dance. So we're going to run true. We're going to run the statement, and we should get false. All right, so that is false. Now that is the AND statement. Now let's talk about the OR. All right, I'm going to do, instead of using the AND operator, I'm going to use the OR operator, which is these two symbols here, and it is in the upper right hand corner right below the back key, if you're wondering. Okay, so now what this is that you have to have money or you have to have ID. So you can go into the dance, only one of those has to be true. So in this case, we have has money, which is true, and has ID, which is false. So what do you think is going to happen? Well, let's take a look. Again, or, when we're using or, only one has to be true. So as we run this, we should get true, which is good. Now, let's say we set both of these to false. Okay, so if we set both of these to false, this means this whole statement is actually going to be false, and we should print out false, which you see here. Now I could set both of these to true, and for the OR policy it's actually overkill because you only need one to be true, and if we were to do that we would get true, because in using the OR policy to get into the dance you have to have ID or money. Either way you can get in, and so in this case this is going to run here. Alright, so that concludes the AND and the OR. Now let's talk about the NOT operator. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment this out. We don't need this, and I'm just going to focus on this. Alright, so we're going to use the NOT operator, and what I'm going to say is not equal to true. Okay, so if this statement is true, this is going to print, so it's still the same thing. So what we're saying here is, and again, this is the verbose way of writing this. What we're saying is that if has money is not equal to true, okay, what do you think is going to print here? Think about it. Okay, has money is not equal to true. So we should get, and if you look here, has money is true. And actually, let me rerun this. All right, so has money is not equal to true. We're going to run this and we should get false. Okay, so it's something you have to think about, but has money is not equal. So this is the not operator. All right, now an easier way of writing this would be to simply just get rid of this and just do that. So these are essentially the same thing. So I could do, let me just do a control. So we could write it like that, but generally you're most likely going to see something like this. And it's actually very easy. Let me get that in there. Okay. So if we run the same thing, we're still going to get false. Okay. And this is actually very easy to remember, because it's going to run false. Because if this is true, it's going to be false, and if this is false, it's going to be true. These are really good for things like where you have a binary option. So you have one of two options. So it could be on, it could be off, something like a toggle button, an on-off button. Let me give you an example. Actually, before I do that, let me just set this to false. Okay, so if we know this is going to be false, remember that it's just the opposite. That's just a quick and dirty way of remembering how this is going to turn out. Okay, so again, we're going to get true now because this is false. All right, I'm going to introduce some code that you may or may not have seen before, but don't worry about it, because what I really want to just demonstrate is the how the not operator works in a loop. And a loop is something that just repeats itself. So we're not going to focus necessarily on the code, but more so on the result. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this here, and I'm going to paste in some code that I did here. So basically we have the same thing, except I have it inside of a for loop. I'm going to get rid of that for now. And what you know, if you've been following my videos, you know what this is. So this is just simply a variable. This is actually a for loop. I'm not going to explain this now, but basically this is going to run 10 times. Okay, Actually, that's going to run 11 times. So anyway, so we're basically putting the conditional statement here with the not operator. And what we're doing is we're just simply doing the same thing we did before, but here we're going to set has money to not has money and has money to not has money. And so we're going to look at what this simple line of code can do. It's very powerful. It's very elegant in the programming speak, because again, you can use these for something like enable, disable, true, false values, on, off, anything of that nature where it's a binary choice. All right. So let's run this code and then let's see what happens here. So again, we're running what's called a loop, which I'll put a link into the video. But notice the output. So we have true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, right? So what's happening is that every time we run through the loop, and again, this runs 11 times. So every time we run through it, if this is true, it turns it to false. If this is false, it turns it to true, and vice versa. And so that's how we get those results there. And so again, I don't really want to focus on this part because I do have a video on loops, which I'll go into more detail. But I really wanted to show you just the power of the not operator and how it's very useful in simple situations where you're trying to create some sort of toggle button that goes on, off, or there's an enable, disable, true, false, or whatever, situation where there's a binary choice, right? There's a choice 1 and choice 2, and that's it. All right, so that concludes this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video and comment. And now class is dismissed. See you in the next video.